While you've navigated IKEA's maze-like stores and struggled with Allen wrenches in countless living rooms, you've unknowingly participated in perhaps the most sophisticated wealth preservation system ever devised by a Swedish furniture dynasty. Indeed, some magicians make elephants disappear. The Kamprad family made $62 billion vanish from the world's financial radar while building IKEA into a global empire. The furniture giant, founded by Ingvar Kamprad, renowned for transparent pricing and democratic design principles, operates through a corporate structure so deliberately opaque that even financial experts need diagrams to comprehend its complexity. This isn't just another tale of offshore accounts or tax havens. It's a multi-generational lesson in creating perpetual family control while remaining virtually invisible to public scrutiny. In today's episode of Old Money Luxury, we decode why the family that started IKEA, the Kamprad family, hides their $62 billion fortune. The Kamprad family pulled off the financial equivalent of making the Eiffel Tower vanish. $62 billion gone in the blink of an accountant's eye, a disappearing act perfected by a man who'd spent decades concealing his Nazi past. When IKEA founder Ingvar Kamprad died in January 2018 at age 91, financial magazines ranked him alongside tech titans as the 8th richest human alive with $58.7 billion, while obituaries delicately sidestepped his membership in Swedish Nazi organizations during the 1940s. Yet the moment funeral flowers wilted and lawyers opened his will, this fortune had seemingly evaporated. His direct heirs inherited what amounted to designer pocket lint by billionaire standards, a financial vanishing as impressive as his transformation from fascist recruiter to beloved businessman. Kamprad's financial wizardry centered on splitting IKEA into two legally distinct corporate groups by 1982, creating a structure so complex that tax authorities still haven't solved it 40 years later. The IKEA Group, officially Inca Holding BV, owned by the Stichting Inca Foundation in the Netherlands, controls most IKEA retail stores worldwide, those blue and yellow labyrinths where you wander lost before impulse buying scented candles. Meanwhile, the Inter-IKEA Group, controlled by the shadowy Interogo Foundation in Liechtenstein, a micro-country spectacular for hiding money, owns the IKEA concept, trademarks, and franchising rights. This separation created a corporate matryoshka doll where each layer reveals another, but the center, where billions live, remains untouchable by tax authorities, much like how Kamprad's carefully crafted public image concealed his uncomfortable political affiliations. The Inter-IKEA Group collects 3% of all IKEA sales worldwide in royalties, every Poang chair contributing to cash flowing into tax-optimized coffers, while PR teams ensured customers never connected their furniture purchases with the founder's youthful enthusiasm for fascism. By 2011, this royalty stream had built a cash mountain exceeding 11 billion euros, according to Swedish journalists who exposed how these royalties flowed directly to the Interogo Foundation without troublesome tax deductions. The foundations protecting Kamprad billions aren't typical charity entities. They're specialized legal vehicles designed to preserve wealth while maintaining family control, not unlike how Kamprad controlled his Nazi narrative through strategic philanthropy after his past was exposed. The Stichting Inca Foundation officially exists for charity and supporting innovation in design, but fine print statutes conveniently allow profits to be reinvested in the company instead of funding actual charitable work. When Kamprad departed for the great furniture showroom in the sky, his heirs received the Ikano Group, a mere $10 billion consolation prize representing loose change from an empire built by a man who managed both his wealth and problematic legacy with equal skill. Behind IKEA's affordable prices lies this legacy of concealment, both of incredible wealth and of a founder who, ironically, began his business career in 1943 as an active member of the Swedish Socialist Coalition, while simultaneously selling pens and recruiting for the fascist movement that would later haunt his carefully constructed mythology. Long before concealing billions or Nazi affiliations, Ingvar Kamprad's gift for commerce emerged in the forests of Småland, Sweden, where scarcity bred the resourcefulness that would eventually create the world's largest furniture retailer. Kamprad's entrepreneurial journey began at age 5, when he executed his first business venture by buying matches in bulk from Stockholm and selling them locally for substantial profit. An early glimpse of the commercial instincts that would one day build a global empire while funding fascist activities. This childhood enterprise rapidly expanded to include Christmas ornaments, fish, lingonberries and garden seeds, building business skills that would serve him equally well selling furniture and extremist ideology. Born in 1926 in Älmhult, Sweden, Ingvar grew up with his younger sister Kerstin on his mother's farm Majtorp, where the extreme thrift he later mythologized as corporate culture stemmed from genuine necessity rather than virtue. The Kamprad family's European roots crossed multiple national boundaries with intriguing political implications. While Ingvar's mother Berta was Swedish, his father Feodor was born in the German Empire and immigrated to Sweden as a child. Ingvar's paternal grandfather, Achim Erdmann Kamprad, came from an aristocratic German family in Thuringia, while his grandmother, Franziska Fanny Glatz, originated from Bohemia in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, creating family connections to regions later consumed by Nazi expansion. Their immigration story began when they spotted an advertisement for a timber estate in a hunting magazine and decided to leave behind rejection from family and economic difficulties in post-industrial Germany. In winter 1896, they purchased a 449-hectare farm near Agunnaryd, Sweden, establishing the Swedish roots of what would become a global dynasty with complex political affiliations. The Kamprad surname itself carried historical significance, dating back to the 14th century as a variant of kamerad, comrade, an ironic etymological connection given Ingvar's later anti-communist, pro-fascist leanings. By the 19th century, the Kamprads had become wealthy estate owners in Thuringia, with Achim Kamprad's mother being a distant relative of Paul von Hindenburg, connections that likely influenced young Ingvar's political sympathies during his formative years. On July 28, 1943, at the remarkably young age of 17, Ingvar Kamprad registered IKEA, an acronym combining his initials with Elmtarid, the family farm, and Agunnaryd, the nearby village. This timing proved particularly significant. While Hitler's armies ravaged Europe and concentration camps operated at full capacity, teenage Ingvar simultaneously built his business and deepened his involvement with Swedish Nazi organizations. His initial business sold imported pens, watches and nylon stockings, but he expanded to include furniture in 1948, a pivotal decision that would eventually transform both retail history and his public image. Kamprad's early insights about distribution efficiencies emerged when he observed the price difference between wholesale and retail pencils, realizing that streamlining could dramatically lower costs, a philosophy that would later manifest in IKEA's revolutionary flat-pack furniture model. In 1950, Kamprad caused controversy at Stockholm's St. Eriksmassan trade fair by displaying consumer prices clearly on all products, outraging competitors who demanded IKEA's removal for ruining prices and the market. Though banned from future events, he found creative workarounds, demonstrating the same resourcefulness he employed when navigating his increasingly inconvenient political associations as his business gained prominence. While Kamprad's furniture empire grew from modest rural roots into a global phenomenon, one particularly uncomfortable aspect of his biography would eventually emerge that no clever corporate structure could completely conceal: his documented enthusiasm for the same ideology that orchestrated Europe's darkest atrocities. Behind IKEA's cheerful blue and yellow facade lurks a historical shadow the company spent decades trying to minimize: Ingvar Kamprad's documented Nazi sympathies during his youth. In the 1990s, Kamprad publicly admitted to and apologized for his association with Swedish Nazi groups, dismissing these activities as youthful indiscretion and poor judgment. This carefully crafted narrative of a misguided teenager making regrettable choices began to unravel when journalist Elizabeth Asbrink's research revealed deeper, more deliberate connections than initially acknowledged. According to Asbrink's findings, Kamprad was not merely a passive sympathizer, but an active member of the Swedish Socialist Coalition, a pro-Nazi organization that advocated for fascist ideals. Documents uncovered by Asbrink indicated that Sweden's security service had created a special file on Kamprad in 1943, noting that he actively recruited new members for the extremist movement. In a letter intercepted by police, the future IKEA founder stated that he had dedicated considerable time and energy to the cause, hardly the casual association of a politically naive youth. The Nazi influence within the Kamprad household appears to have been significant and normalized, creating an environment where extremist views flourished. In Asbrink's account, Hitler was referred to as Uncle in the Kamprad home, and when Uncle Hitler annexed the Sudetenland, the region from which Ingvar's ancestors came, the family reportedly celebrated this territorial conquest. This political alignment extended well beyond the war years, as Kamprad maintained a friendship with Per Engdahl, founder of a Swedish fascist movement, long after World War II ended. He even invited Engdahl to his wedding in 1950, demonstrating that these connections persisted well into Kamprad's adult life as he was building his furniture empire. Perhaps the most fascinating paradox in this narrative involves Otto Ullmann, an Austrian Jewish refugee who fled Nazi persecution and eventually worked as a servant at the Kamprad family farm in Elmtarid. Despite the stark ideological contradictions, Ullmann and Ingvar became close friends, working, drinking, and pursuing romantic interests together, while Kamprad was actively involved with pro-Nazi organizations. According to Asbrink's research, Ullmann's children later recalled that their father had no knowledge of Kamprad's political affiliations at the time and was deeply angered when these revelations emerged in the 1990s, refusing to forgive his former friend. These uncomfortable historical facts create a striking contrast with IKEA's modern progressive corporate image and values of inclusion and diversity. The company's response to these revelations has evolved over decades, moving from outright denial to carefully worded acknowledgments that attempt to separate the founder's youthful politics from the global brand. Kamprad's first marriage to Kerstin Wadling resulted in the adoption of a daughter, Annika, in 1958, creating the beginning of what would become a powerful business dynasty. After divorcing in 1961, Kamprad married his second wife, Margareta Kamprad Stennert, 1938 to 2011, whom he met when she was just 20 years old. This union produced 3 sons, Peter, Jonas, and Matthias, who would later take on significant roles in the family business and inherit the responsibility of managing their father's complicated legacy. Having survived his Nazi affiliations, becoming public without destroying his company, Kamprad unleashed his next controversial creation, a billionaire persona so aggressively frugal it would make Depression-era grandparents look like champagne-swilling lottery winners. As IKEA expanded globally throughout the 1970s and 80s, Kamprad developed a business persona as colorful and distinctive as the company's furniture catalogs. Despite amassing a fortune that could fund small nations, Kamprad cultivated an image of extreme frugality that became as much a part of his brand as flat-pack furniture. He drove a 1993 Volvo 240 GL for nearly 2 decades, parting with it only when convinced the aging vehicle had become unsafe. Remarkable restraint for a man who could have purchased a fleet of luxury automobiles without noticing the expense. His transportation choices consistently made headlines in financial publications accustomed to profiling billionaires with helicopter collections. Though he owned a car, Kamprad frequently opted for public transportation, once being denied entry to a gala event where he was scheduled to receive a Businessman of the Year award simply because he had arrived by bus. This commitment to modest transportation extended to his air travel, where he insisted on flying economy class despite having billions in the bank. Kamprad's dining habits proved equally bewildering to the wealth management community. Rather than indulging in fine dining during business travels, he frequently opted for meals at IKEA cafeterias, enjoying $4 plates of Swedish meatballs with lingonberry jam and mashed potatoes. Even more peculiarly, he was known to pocket salt and pepper packets from restaurants to take home, behavior typically associated with struggling college students, not global retail titans. At IKEA headquarters, employees reportedly faced reprimands if they didn't use both sides of paper sheets or left lights on when exiting a room, environmental concerns thinly disguising Kamprad's obsession with cost-cutting. In his 1976 document, Testament of a Furniture Dealer, Kamprad outlined his philosophy of avoiding luxury hotels, flashy cars, impressive titles, and other status symbols, emphasizing simplicity as a core value. This carefully cultivated image of extreme thrift came with notable contradictions that rarely made headline news. Despite his public penny-pinching, Kamprad also owned a villa in Switzerland, a large country estate in Sweden, a vineyard in Provence, France, and at one point drove a Porsche, luxury indulgences that complicated his frugal public persona. By the 1970s, despite IKEA's growing success, Kamprad became increasingly concerned about Sweden's high inheritance and wealth taxes. In 1973, Kamprad moved IKEA to Denmark and began implementing a complex multinational structure that would eventually span numerous countries with varying tax regulations. Kamprad's personal struggles included a battle with alcoholism, developed during his early career working with furniture manufacturers in Poland. In a 2004 interview, he acknowledged his struggles with alcohol addiction, claiming to have developed a system to control his drinking, applying the same methodical approach to personal problems that characterized his business strategy. After living in Switzerland from 1976, ostensibly to maintain IKEA's status as a private company, but widely believed to be for tax advantages, Kamprad benefited from Switzerland's lump sum taxation system. Under this system, Kamprad reportedly paid just 200,000 Swiss francs, approximately $215,000, in annual taxes, despite being one of the world's wealthiest individuals. The eccentric billionaire who stole salt packets and flew economy had one final masterpiece to create before his death. 3 heirs who inherited control of a $62 billion empire, yet remained so invisible that facial recognition software would struggle to identify the men who collect a percentage every time you buy a Billy bookcase. The 3 men who control one of Earth's largest retail empires might pass you on the street without triggering a second glance, exactly how they prefer it. Peter, Jonas, and Matthias Kamprad inherited more than just their father's business acumen. They received his lesson in maintaining astronomical wealth while projecting modest public personas. Unlike the flamboyant billionaire dynasties that plaster their names on buildings and flaunt their fortunes on social media, the Kamprad brothers operate with the stealth of financial ninjas. Their combined influence oversees a retail juggernaut with plans to generate $62 billion in annual revenues, yet most people couldn't pick them out of a lineup. This invisibility represents the ultimate luxury in our attention-hungry era, the freedom to control vast wealth without paparazzi or public scrutiny. Matthias Kamprad, the youngest son, holds perhaps the most powerful position as chairman of IKEA Holding, the entity that controls the IKEA concept and collects those lucrative franchise fees. His brothers Peter and Jonas serve on various boards within the IKEA corporate galaxy, maintaining family control while technically remaining separate from direct ownership. All 3 brothers co-own the IKEA Group, a diversified business with interests spanning banking, insurance, manufacturing, and real estate. Their more visible inheritance valued at approximately $10 billion. When photographs of the Kamprad brothers do surface, they typically show unassuming middle-aged men in simple clothing, their father's lessons in frugal appearances apparently well learned. Their rare public statements emphasize stewardship rather than ownership, positioning themselves as caretakers of their father's vision rather than conventional billionaire heirs. This carefully cultivated image serves a dual purpose, maintaining the IKEA brand's affordable, democratic ethos while deflecting attention from the family's extraordinary wealth. The true genius of the Kamprad succession plan lies in its perfect alignment with contemporary corporate values. Long before sustainability became a buzzword, Ingvar designed a business structure built to outlast generations. Through foundations, holding companies, and cross-border structures, the Kamprad family created not just a furniture empire, but a financial dynasty designed to survive political upheavals, tax regime changes, and family conflicts. Public Eye, a non-profit organization in Switzerland that promotes corporate responsibility, formally criticized IKEA for its tax avoidance strategies, and in 2007 nominated IKEA for one of its awards, highlighting corporate irresponsibility. IKEA has consistently declined to participate in governmental inquiries about its tax practices, refusing to be auditioned by the Information Commission of the French National Assembly on corporate tax optimization, alongside other multinational giants like Apple and Facebook. What sets the Kamprad approach apart from other wealthy families is the extraordinary foresight and planning invested in creating this structure decades before it would be needed. While many wealthy individuals engage in tax planning and wealth preservation, few have done so with the complexity, thoroughness, and long-term vision of Ingvar Kamprad. The family's unwritten mandate appears to value corporate immortality over individual recognition, a philosophy that emphasizes continuity and legacy above personal wealth. During a rare 1998 interview, Kamprad expressed his belief in maintaining substantial financial reserves for the company's future rather than distributing profits. This extraordinary story raises profound questions about wealth, taxation, and corporate responsibility that extend far beyond flat-pack furniture. While IKEA's affordable products democratize design for millions of consumers worldwide, the company's ownership structure represents one of capitalism's most sophisticated mechanisms for preserving and protecting dynastic wealth. In an era demanding greater corporate transparency, the Kamprad family's ability to maintain control over a $62 billion fortune while remaining largely invisible demonstrates either the ultimate financial sleight of hand or the perfect blueprint for sustainable business, depending entirely on your perspective. And now we'd like to see you in the comments. Has your view of IKEA changed after learning about the Kamprad family secrets? Let us know below. Thank you for watching another episode of Old Money Luxury, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.